Hello there, fenirob here with JP. We're going to compare and contrast Lost Cities, the original card game, not the second one, the original, and Lost Cities, the Roll and Write, which is a new game that came out in the last several months. We've played them now both a couple of times. I've played Lost Cities for years, one of my favorite two-player games, and I don't know. I think they're both actually great games. I think Lost Cities, the card game, is a classic. The back and forth, just play a card, take a card, and then the whole waiting game of holding out type of thing, hoping that your opponent doesn't get the right card that won't help out your opponent and still let you build up. Whereas this game seemed like, not that it was friendlier as much, but it did seem like I had more choices, at least in the two-player game.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see. Obviously, this has the expandability to play more people.
Yes, I think it plays up to 4. I guess you could play with as many as you like.
I mean, hypothetically, everyone could be taking the other things. It would just end really quickly, probably.
But with more players, I think the real issue would be with the two-player game, we got to choose first.
Right.
Every other turn. In a 4-player game, you'd only get to make that choice once, so you'd be
passing a lot.
On the other hand, it would make it more difficult for people to see to be able to hate draft as much, because there's too many people to hate draft for.
Well, and one of the in-game conditions for this is everyone becoming exhausted. So if you're only getting first pick once every 4 turns, then yeah, you may have to pass a lot, but that may be what triggers the game. It wouldn't be like with the 2-player game, both games ended by us completing all of the rows, right?
Right.
Crossing all the bridges is one of the end conditions. So it could be that then all of a sudden these negative points are a whole lot more likely. Saying, I'm going to skip on yellow entirely because I'm way too far away may be a valid strategy when it looks like everyone may be becoming exhausted before the game ends. Yeah, I think they both have the same flavor. They both do a lot of things the same way, but they can also... I could see someone liking one of them and not liking the other.
Yeah. I mean, what did you think? Is there one that you don't like between these two?
No, I think I enjoyed both of them. I think they both do a lot of the same things really well. I enjoyed with the card version. I enjoyed the risky. It's blind knowledge for this. You know what I mean? Like, It's that risk of the call for me here is I really need to discard a card into a discard pile. Can I do that in a way that's safe where my opponent can't use it?
Right. And you also
or are they waiting around and they're going to snatch that up?
You also don't know if I already have 4 of that suit in hand when you do. So both of the games have the deal where you double your points for an expedition.
Right.
And you've got to make that call before you add stuff to it. In the dice game, there's always a chance what you need is going to be rolled, no matter what. In this game, in the card game, it's finite.
Right.
If I have the 7, 8, 9, and 10 in my hand, and you don't know that,
I could have everything else in a certain color and be like, oh, I'm going to double this. Maybe I'll draw that.
You might triple it. You might quadruple it only to get negative scores.
Right.
So I do think that is a bit more unforgiving. I mean, it seems obviously unforgiving, and that's. I guess you like that or you don't like that. I don't mind it. To me, that's enough difference.
I don't mind it, but I do think, like, if I had to pick one of these 2 games to play, I think I would do the roll and write one, just because I enjoyed that sort of anything can happen on a roll scenario. Which I realize with this one, anything can happen with the draw of a card, but not if your opponent has it, not if you haven't set up the right draw. Again, I would gladly play both of them plenty more. They're both great games. But just personal preference, I enjoyed the experience of rolling and trying to figure out, is there a legal place for me to put this? Is there a legal way for me to take something that works okay for me but stops you from getting your ideal thing? That worked better for me, but not because I disliked the card one.
Yeah, I think with some games where there's an older version and then they do a roll and write, sometimes they completely bomb. But usually when a game is built on a previous version of a game, especially one that's been around for a while, the designers learn from the mistakes of the first game.
Sure.
There's a couple of things about the roll and write that I find more accessible. And here's what that is. Number one, I think it's much easier to score.
Yes.
You have the sheets, first of all. And so, I mean, obviously you have something to write on to show your scores. In this one, you're supposed to play 3 rounds. Got to add up the scores. So that's a little bit less friendly, although it's definitely not a deal breaker.
No.
The other thing about this game is it plays more people. And I think it would be an easy game to teach a group of non-players.
Sure.
The rules are not totally alien to someone who's played games like Rummy or Yahtzee or something else. You've got the chance to roll.
Yeah.
And as you said, this one here, it doesn't feel like it has many possibilities, where in this one, you can just keep rolling. You might end up with purple 7 5 rounds in a row.
Right. And
just work your way up with the combos type of thing.
Yeah.
I think the art in this game is better, obviously, because it's got art on the cards. It's got a board. Very, very, both of them are small, easy to move around. This one, I mean, you could play with more people if you just passed out more pads.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the side of the box. The recommended numbers are 2 to 5.
Oh, so it's not 2 to 4.
But the truth is, there's a reason you couldn't play with more people than that. Again, it just probably, the game would end by exhaustion, likely before any other end condition.
I think it's actually not a superfluous design. I think it's enough different.
Oh, sure.
And the fact that this is strictly a 2-player game, it's a card game. I think either of these would go with a wider audience. And I think as a person who tends to play heavier games, I think there are challenges. This game is a waiting game.
Yes.
It's a battle of wills and pressing your luck.
And card management, making sure that you can set up to wait as long as possible on the combo that you want to play out.
It's a little bit tense. It's a tense game. This one, at first, it seemed like it was going to be tense, but the more we played, it seemed like I had more choices of where to put something that weren't deadly to me, whereas in this game, you sweat it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Especially if you think your opponent's holding on to that card that you know they have. You've drawn 20 cards out of the deck. There's only 4 left, and you still haven't seen that 10. That's not a good feeling.
Yep.
When you're on the receiving end. If you're holding the 10, it makes you feel a little bit better.
Although you're also having to keep in mind that, like, with this one, you may be hanging on to a card the whole game just to keep the other person from having it.
Right.
So now you're playing with a 7-card hand instead of an 8-card hand, but it may cost them 40 points. You know what I mean? Right. So it's worth doing.
This game fits a spot that I think registers higher in, if I had to play only a 2-player game and it was card-based, I think this would rank higher in the list of other 2-player card games than this would as a roll and write.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think this is going to be a more competitive head-to-head experience. But like you said, I think this could appeal to a broader audience.
A little more casual.
A little more flexibility with it as far as play number. And a little more casual experience. But the truth is, complex enough, like you said, where you're going to be
thinking.
Yeah, you're going to be puzzling out some decisions, and is it worth me taking this much higher number in this column for X, Y, and Z reasons? So I still feel like it's puzzly enough that it's going to be appealing to a more hardcore player.
I think on a scale of 1 to awesome, I'm going to put this the original card game, again, based on its peers, I'm going to put this as an excellent game. And I'm going to put the roll and write as very solid.
I'm probably going to do similar but swapped. I like this a lot and definitely play it plenty more. This is one of the better roll and writes that I have played, so it's going to be pretty close to awesome for me, just because it feels, I don't know, it checked a lot of the boxes for me as far as a roll and write style of game, and it did it better than a lot of other ones that I've played in that style.
Tell me what other games you have played that are roll and writes and compare them to Lost Cities. And how do they rank?
Sure. The one other game that I've played the most that my wife picked up and she enjoys a lot, and I enjoy, is Welcome To, which is the sort of neighborhood building roll and write. Called flip and write, I guess. There's no dice involved with that, but it's still, you each have your little sheet and you write in the numbers. It's got a very similar system where in that game, it's from left to right, but you have to numerically increase as you go across the houses. And it has a similar mechanic where each number combos with some sort of special ability that you get to do. The things that I like about that game versus this is that there feels like there's a lot more flexibility for how you want to try to get the numbers fit into your row, because as opposed to this where you have to number them in order and climb in that order.
Right.
With that game, if you draw a 7 and that's what you get, you can put that in the middle of your row and be like, that's where 7 is going to be. I can work both directions.
I see.
So it gives you
less
some flexibility.
forgiving.
Yeah. So it gives you some more flexibility as far as I can go, I can know that I've got a 3 and I got a 7. I can just leave spaces and fill in those gaps later when I get better numbers. The thing that I enjoyed way better about this game than that is the process of end-game scoring. That game, I feel like you play over 20 to 30 minutes, but then scoring is the next 10 minutes, because every different way to score points in that game has a different formula for how to figure it out. And there's all these charts and things that you're having to go through and process the points for that section. So you play the full game, and then you're all going to sit there around the table silently doing math for 10 minutes until you can finally read out some scores. With this one, again, like you said, the components are built here to just go up the top of the row, across, and ta-da, you're done. This just felt like a more
streamlined?
Yeah, more streamlined experience, more streamlined scoring, especially experience. And that's why, for me, I feel like this would win out over Welcome To.
And for me, the barometer for the best of roll and writes is Fleet, the dice game, because it has enough complexity for me in thinking and figuring out what combos, but is not terribly difficult to understand the rules of what you're doing. And it's the same concept. You roll the dice, you pick the ones you want, everybody else gets the leftovers type of thing. And that was another thing I think you mentioned before, because we're back on camera now, was that you just enjoy throwing dice too.
Yeah.
Whereas
this has a tactile experience. Welcome To, you flip cards over. And also in Welcome To, everyone has access to the full pool of cards, which allows for that game to play. I mean, the box has up to 99. It's that sort of play at a convention style game, like bingo. Everyone has access to the same stuff, and how you fill out your sheet may determine how you do amongst the full group of people. So we've used it a ton at big parties, but that also means that there's so much flexibility. There's not that. There's no little bit. Yeah, there's that little bit of, this does me good enough, and you don't get it.
Right.
Which I like out of this.
And Fleet has the same thing, where the first player to go in the round gets something and the other people have to take. This one is a little bit more forgiving than that. Everybody else gets to reuse the ones that are left over, as sort of making up for the fact that they don't get ones to themselves. Whereas in Fleet, you take yours, the next person takes theirs, they take theirs. The last person that round is with what's left over. So it's a little bit, more unforgiving, but I do like the complexity level of that game is at this point the max of what I'd want in my roll and write, and it also has theme. Now this game doesn't have a tremendous theme, but it has enough of a theme that I know I'm looking for artifacts. I'm going on expeditions just as much as this. And
sure,
Reiner Knizia games have mostly been thought of to have very little theme, but the mechanics to me, they make up for it in many ways. This is not an epic game. Neither is Fleet the dice game, but it feels a little bit more epic, even though the overall experience is one that's less than a medium weight or a medium weight of game.
Right.
There have been other ones that I've played. I played Tiny Towns, which is a flip and write. And I didn't care for that game. I thought it was just, there's too many, was trying too hard to give me so many options of how to set up the game and play. And maybe over the course of playing it dozens of times, that would come through. But I don't, there games that I play dozens of times are either of this level,
right,
or are games that I love so much, which tend to be heavier games.
Right.
And I'm going to play those over and over and over again. Whereas something like Tiny Towns, probably not going to do. And then the other one I played is This Game is Clever, or This Game is So Clever. I've played the Trois dice game. Both of those seem to have extra rules that give you more decisions.
Right.
But if they're decisions for the sake of having more decisions.
Right.
And I just, for whatever reason, those fell flat with me. Whereas this is simple enough that I can play it and move on to the next game. Same thing the way Lost Cities was. We played Merchants and Marauders for hours. And then we played this, for 3 rounds. And it was kind of a good cherry on top of a gaming Sunday.
Yeah.
And I feel like if it was much more complex, this would be game night, which wouldn't be horrible. But
well, again, it's like you said, at some point, games of this weight, what you're looking for, if you want a bigger epic experience, you don't want to just upgrade a game like this. You're going to go play a full-scale board game where you're pushing around armies or rolling tons of dice or making epic decisions. When you pull out a game like this, it's because, hey, it's 30 minutes to dinner. Let's pop something out and play it real quick.
I agree.
Hey, we're sitting in the lobby of the hotel for an hour before we're going to the whatever showing. Let's pop this out and play a couple hands of it.
Right.
These are lightweight, fun, portable style games. If you want a bigger experience, it's not because you want this cranked up.
Right.
You're going to play something bigger.
And I also think I would tend to play a game like this with a group of gamers that you've seen. They'll be on the channel sometimes where we play Camel Up and Coup and those sorts of things where we're basically getting together to have a few drinks, have a good night, and they're not necessarily,
you want to play a bunch of fun, small scale games.
Just play it over, just
sure.
And you don't have to think. You can think horribly and have zero effect on anybody else in this game except your own score.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're playing a game, like Twilight Imperium, and one of the players isn't really trying or has had 6 beers and is now negotiating like a tyrant, it might make the experience fun. It also might be infuriating.
Sure.
And you don't have that here. So I just wanted to make sure that we talked about what we were comparing it to, not just these two. When we talk about this is the best roll and write or one of the better ones I've played, we need some frame of reference.
Sure.
So thank you for that. Well, there you have it. That's our comparison of the Lost Cities, these two at least. Thanks for watching. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel.